What's up, everybody? Armand, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I can see you have some interesting books on your shelves behind you, so I can tell today's going to be...
Today's different.
Yeah. What you got
different
there?
Day. I have about 100-year-old book called
The Rosicrucian
Cosmoconception. And I'd like to do this because this is pretty funny. Highlighting. Who would highlight a book that could go in a museum? What an asshole, right? But yeah. So yeah, Rosicrucian Cosmoconception. Quite a crazy book. Things written over 100 years ago. It's great. It's just stuff everything that's kind of happening now. Theories and things people want to talk about. They're already in this book. Of course, Zecharia Sitchin, and so is this one. It was probably his most famous one.
The 12th Planet. Yep.
This is the Anunnaki. What are human beings? Why we're here and where we're going and our history of who we are. It's a theory. I'm not saying I necessarily completely live by it, but I find it fascinating. So, and then the channeling book, Raw Material, 80s book about a woman channeling various extraterrestrials. Don't even call them extraterrestrials because they're actually just in another dimensional state. So you can call them extra dimensionals.
I will. I'll make a note of that. Awesome. We'll get into all that in a sec.
Put the sauce on it.
Like we usually do, we're going to put some sauce on it. Let's take a little sec to talk about some recipes because we're all just stuck at home. I'll tell you something I've been cooking. You'll tell me something you've been cooking. I was thinking I could break down the hummus because I've been making hummus at home. All you need is a couple ingredients in a blender. It's so easy to make. It just makes me wonder why I ever bought hummus. So here it is. Super simple. You get a can of chickpeas at the supermarket. All the proportions in the recipe work with 1 can of chickpeas. So it's super easy quantity-wise. And I even find that the liquid that the chickpeas are in the can help make the hummus creamy. So you throw the whole can of chickpeas in the blender, 2 chopped up garlic cloves, salt, pepper. Second step, I open up the blender, throw in, I want to say it's half a cup of tahini and a quarter cup of fresh squeezed lemon juice, some paprika, then turn the blender back on. When it's pretty much done, I also add a little bit of olive oil, just a little sliver of olive oil. Give it one last little run on the blender, and it's delicious hummus. It's that simple.
Do you put pine nuts in it as well?
So there's certain things that you can add to personalize your hummus. You can put some pine nuts. You can also put a little bit of, cayenne pepper or any other.
I'm part cayenne and paprika too. I'm part Lebanese,
paprika for sure.
Yeah, I'm part Lebanese. Every time I've had Lebanese food, they make the hummus. My favorite hummus is Lebanese hummus. So just like I'm proud to be Lebanese. But they always do the pine nuts in the center. But they do that pit. They make a pit. It's filled with olive oil. And kind of around that pit and kind of on the edge are pine nuts. And it's like, it's just, I love that. I was making this plate a while for a long time. And then a conversation actually came up last night when I was talking to some friends because they ordered a cacio pepe. And I'm like, I love cacio pepe. And I used to make it. I haven't made it in a bit, like a couple months. But I'm going to make it again because it's like one of my favorite Italian dishes. And it's also as simple as hummus. It's a really simple pasta plate. So my noodle for cacio pepe, the noodle, it's a pasta. So the noodle that I like to use is bucatini. And bucatini is like a fatter spaghetti, but it has a little bit of a hollow section in it. Bucatini might be my favorite noodle.
I'm going to remember that for your birthday. I got you your favorite noodle. Bucatini. Yeah.
So you basically, you cook the pasta, do the bucatini. I hope I don't explain to people at this point that you always do al dente.
That's the way.
It's better for it to be undercooked than overcooked. The people out there that are destroying their pastas, like making that thing a soggy mess, please stop. So the key thing I noticed to making your bucatini extra special is you have to, you grind the pepper, just grind it in a small pot. They say, you're supposed to do like 6 tablespoons of black pepper, whatever. Just do whatever you feel you want in it, but it's a lot of black pepper. And, I put that, if you leave that in the pot, you don't put anything in the pot. You leave that in the pot, and what you do is heat the pepper with nothing, no water, just the grinded pepper.
Yeah.
Heat it. There'll be like a slight smoke will come off it, and it'll have an aroma. It's like actually a really pleasant smell. It's hard to explain, but instantly now you add like massive amount of butter to it.
Okay.
But you want to get that pepper to get hot, like heated up. So then it's just the butter. Add a lot of Parmesan, and you add a lot of butter.
Cacio e pepe isn't it a specific type of cheese?
It's Parmesan, yeah. I mean, you could do Romano as well.
Because I was going to say Cacio e pepe is in Rome. It's like the specialty in Rome, right?
Well, I don't know. And you're right. Italy's very territorial about their pastas and cheese.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that. I'm very aware of that. Yeah. It's tribal warfare with their food. But
so you got the Parmesan.
What I do is I try and have the Parmesan grated and everything just ready to go. So when I add the butter, you kind of just heat up the stuff and you get the Parmesan. You just add that pot of the butter and black pepper
to the
noodles, and then you just throw in the grated Parmesan. You stir the whole thing up in the pot that you boiled the bucatini in if you want.
Yeah.
And it'll just get to this texture. You got to do it for a little bit to get it going, get it all nicely covered. That's pretty much it.
That's the deal. Aromatic. All right. What else we got?
A-trak is Aries, a fiery Aries, and I am a Aquarius. And I want to say an airy Aquarius because people think Aquarius are water. We're not water. We are air.
Air.
So, yes, we're air sign, not to be confused with Aries.
Right.
So, this is A-trak's horoscope for the week. Right now, so much of your time is spent waiting to see what new ways the universe will find to crash through your life and to grind you into the ground. This week, your task is to remember that even if you can't bring all of society back into alignment, even if you can't end all cruelty and suffering and greed, you aren't powerless. You can find new ways to feel like you're alive and in motion, new ways to feel like an active presence in your life and the world around you.
I like that. So in other words, don't try to solve the entire world. Maybe just start small and start around me.
Yeah,
because I tend to try to do too much.
Yeah, I agree. You gotta go micro, not macro.
Right. Okay. I'll listen to that. And then Armand, here is your Aquarius weekly horoscope. Your ambitions tend toward the grand, the unpredictable, the world altering. Your dreams for the world are wild and revolutionary. This week, though, is for something different, something that might feel smaller than you're used to. This isn't a week for seeking out new universes or constructing entirely new ways of living. Rather, this is just a week for doing what you can to put care back into the world. A week for giving and receiving kindness and warmth.
Nice. Yeah, similar to yours.
It's similar agenda.
Almost, yeah, we got the same thing this week. I love it. Get out of the macro and into the micro. I like it.
Yeah, and just keep it simple and just live the week as it is.
Yeah.
We might not change the world this week. But it's okay.
Not this week now. We can skip a week.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Go.
This week, we have a very special guest who, Armand, you put me on to this gentleman. His name is Billy Carson. Maybe you can say a few words about who he is.
I don't know if I found him or if he just kind of popped up in my algorithm, as they say. But whatever, I followed him and I found out, I'm like, wow, this guy's speaking my language. I thought he was fascinating. I also there was a guy before him that I discovered. This guy, his name was David Wilcox. And he wrote a book called The Source Field Investigation. And I thought that book was amazing. The guy we're having today, Billy Carson, he had been in those circles as well. You can't know everything. So somehow I didn't know about Billy Carson.
Yeah. And so we had a really fascinating conversation that felt like it could have gone on for hours and hours. You're much more versed in these kinds of theories than I am. And I think I used to be more of a skeptic, and now I'm trying to, with your help, to be honest, I've tried to be more open to different theories. And I think there's something admirable about this level of research and knowledge, connecting the dots between so many different theories. So
yeah.
It was a really cool conversation.
It really was. And if you think about it too, in short, all science that has become fact started with a crazy person.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I don't mean that I'm crazy, Billy. Anybody's crazy. It's just that it comes with somebody that's thinking outside the box.
Yeah, it takes a level of almost imagination. It takes a level of open-mindedness to even conject some of these hypotheses. So Without further ado, let's bring on Billy Carson. Cool. So, Billy Carson, welcome to Duck Goose. Thanks for linking up with myself and Armand. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for thinking about me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, all good, man. All good.
Yeah.
Cool.
With the music of Duck Sauce, there's more dimensions than just the music itself, and it's fun to be able to explore, like the conversation we're about to have now.
Yeah, absolutely,
for sure. Yeah,
there's always deeper meanings to everything, and
absolutely
that's all about breaking out the deeper meanings, the forbidden knowledge, if you would. It's not totally banned knowledge; it's just kind of forbidden. So you have to really dig for those answers. And so, when we come across those as individuals, it's our mission. I think it's our duty to share that information with as many people as we can.
Yeah, for sure. And it is. Yeah, that's kind of like my first question to you, which is basically like, do you feel that hidden or in a sense or forbidden knowledge is kind of pushing its way out of the esoteric and kind of into the mainstream, in a sense where like the truths that we kind of were taught and learned and, basically brought up with are changing now, and our reality is changing somewhat. Do you agree with that?
I agree 1,000%. I mean, when I first started this, we're talking about going all the way back now, meaning when I started researching. This was 1977, okay?
Wow.
So in 1977, that's when I literally started researching out of the Encyclopedia Britannica's aerospace, because I saw what I thought could have been something not of this earth in my backyard. It looked like a UFO. But UFO didn't exist in my vocabulary at that moment. I just knew that what I saw wasn't an airplane, I live by an airport in Opelika in Miami, Opelika, Hialeah. I live by an airport. So I knew what an airplane looked like,
Well, you lived next to Miami International, right?
Well, I wasn't all the way down there, but you can see those planes go down as well. But the private airport.
Oh, you were at the Opelika, the private airport. Yeah, I know that.
Right. It would fly over my backyard, and I would just go outside and watch them go across the horizon. And one day, this object came across the horizon, and it didn't look like a plane. It was more oval, not circular, but more oval, elongated. And it was like a gleaming metal, and it went across the horizon in seconds, not minutes. And a typical plane takes about 10 minutes to go all the way across till I couldn't see it anymore. So I knew what I saw just wasn't an airplane. So the next day I went to my school, my elementary school, Rainbow Park, and I literally took down all the Encyclopedia Britannicas on aerospace and started studying. That was the day I started researching this stuff.
Cool.
And I started talking to some friends, some close friends about these topics. Could this be from space? Could it be from the ocean? We were kind of debating as little kids. And with no influence from outside sources to say these are aliens, because you had 4 TV channels back then. No cable TV existed. No cell phones. Not even beepers existed yet. 1970s. So this is all just our own speculation as kids. Where could that thing have come from? And we started having private meetings in the bushes, like on one of the sides of our houses. Then it expanded to VHS tapes that we would get, and we would exchange conspiracies. Then it moved into CDs. Then it went to DVDs, then it went to cassettes, then it went to forums and web blogs, now social media, and now streaming TV. So that progression, it's like straight up, like a rocket ship, where information was so sequestered and so, silent, and you couldn't speak about it. You'd be considered a whack job, to now I can hear people openly talking about these kinds of topics at restaurants and parks and everywhere else, or even on airplanes, So we are headed towards that breakthrough to go full mainstream. And that's why I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And people go, why are you trying to get this information out there? Why are you trying to be on TV and blah, blah, blah? Well, why not? They're on TV. They're trying to program you. Why can't I program you with what I know the right way, instead of what they're doing, in my opinion, is the wrong way, and give you the real knowledge, so that you can at least have something to think, balance out, and say, well, maybe this is something that can help me. Maybe it isn't. But at least you have a choice, instead of just getting one view all the time, And that's why I just made the decision, I think about maybe 7 years ago now, that I'm going to push this as hard as I can push it and take it to as big as it can possibly get. Because one thing I did learn in my studies was that in order to get to a golden age, all of these things, all these illusions and delusions that we have are going to fall to the wayside. And this information is going to become commonplace. So I said, I'm just going to continue to push. I'm like a pioneer, you know?
Yeah. So since you're touching on your background, and I'm just thinking that there might be people in our audience who might not be familiar. Why don't we take a sec for you to tell us, the full picture of what you do, because I know that you're an author. I know you're active on television, like you mentioned. I know you even have I believe a rocket startup company. There's some research.
A space agency, and we're doing research and development on propulsion systems, as well as perpetual generators. And I invented a battery, which is now patent pending.
Amazing. Wow. So even for the full picture of who is Billy Carson and what you do, how would you introduce that?
The short answer is I create ripples in the space-time continuum that alter future realities in the third dimension. That's the short version. The long version is
as we all should.
Yes. Right, exactly. The long version is I'm a TV host. I'm considered an expert host on deep space by Gaia. I'm an expert host on ancient civilizations. I'm on American Mystery on the Discovery Channel, where we talk about different mysteries from as far as the ancient past, even to more current era. I'm also on UFOs, The Untold Truth, and UFOs, The Lost Evidence, which is on the Travel Channel, both of those shows. I'm on the Science Channel. I'm on so many shows. So I'm like considered an expert in ancient civilizations and advanced or suppressed technologies. I'm also a blogger. I'm a social media manager. I have 139 social media accounts that I own across all platforms. Now I have over 4 million followers and growing every single day. I also now am a owner of a TV network, Forbidden Knowledge TV. And we are on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and of course, all the app stores as well. And that's growing phenomenally. And I now also own my own social media platform, Unite the 99, on iOS for Apple and also for Android as well.
Cool. Awesome.
So I've done a lot. I'm also a music producer. I've been on Billboard, 2018, 8 weeks on Billboard, Return to Venky with Donnie Arcade. I've got 120 songs in global distribution right now. That's a lot. I own a record label,
so there's
I think more stuff I come up with, but I believe in creating my reality.
Yeah.
Right. I was watching a music video that you have that you posted on your Instagram not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think that was it. Yeah. The video was really impressive too. Cool.
Thank you.
It's safe to say you can multitask.
I can multitask. Yeah, I keep 50 tabs open at all times on my laptop here. All times. That's where I just go.
That's crazy.
Go up and down all day long like a piano keyboard.
That's awesome. So what was kind of like, I know that you said how you first got into it when you kind of thought you saw a UFO, or for sure you saw a UFO in your backyard. But what was kind of like one of the first, what was the book, or like you actually, two things. One, you explained you had a crew that you would run your knowledge by. I think that's awesome. Did you guys have a name of your crew, or is it just like like a thing?
We didn't really have a name, but we would just go in the bushes and talk. It was 4 of us, and people would come in and see what we were hanging out and and talking about. We have built a little clubhouse with some spare wood and stuff, and people would come back there and start trying to find out what we were doing. So we actually used to dig traps and holes in the ground and cover them with leaves. Yeah. So that when people come back, they'd fall in the holes. It was crazy stuff, man. Okay. I never talked about this before. You guys pull this one out of me. But anyway, Brian Perry, if you ever watch this, he's going to laugh his butt off because he knows what I'm talking about. We try to keep people away from coming back there and, to our secret meetings, our own little secret society that we kind of started to talk about these aliens and stuff. But so we started back then. And I really began to believe the more I started looking into books, because the Encyclopedia Britannica sales rep came to my house a week after I started studying at the school. And my mom got approved for the whole set. And I was like in heaven. And so the more I started looking into these ancient civilizations, even though it was the mainstream version, in my mind, I was like, wait, there's something more here, As a little kid, I knew this already. And I told my mom in like 1978, I said, I just feel like I don't belong here, And I was staring out the picture window at the house that we were renting. And she came up behind me and said, "What's wrong, son?" And I said, "I feel like I don't belong here. I just feel like I'm a man outside of time." She's like, "Wow." And she started telling me about Machu Picchu, aliens. There's ancient airports on this planet, and everything that we see was already here before. This is just a rediscovery. My mom, this is back in the 70s. She knew about all this stuff already, but no extra influence from all this stuff that's going on now. So it then became my life's quest to dig and find out as much information as I possibly could on what's really going on behind the scenes.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. That's really cool. So what books did you read that kind of changed you a bit? Like if you could pick one book that was like, I found this book and it's kind of like your book that really set you off in the direction you're in now. Would you have one offhand? Or?
Well, there was one before I got to the main book was the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, but I got to that later. The first book that really just expanded my brain was The Gods of Eden by William Bramley.
William Bramley. Yeah. I've read that book. That's a great one. That's good.
That opened me up to understand how they had politics in the ancient past, bicameral Congress. They had the structure to set up to have inflation and all. And I learned from the ground up how we got to where we are right now.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the biggest eye opener, and all the dots were connected through that.
Your story is very, I hate this. I mean, Alain, you're up next for the question, but your story is very similar to my story. It's crazy. Wow. Like, I know we don't know each other at all, but I've had the Gods of Eden book was also one of the first books that blew my head back. And I'm not making that up. I have it right here, but I brought these books down because I have the Zachariah Sitchin books and the Law of One and stuff like that. But
I can make a raw book, man.
Yeah, I have the Rosicrucian Cosmo Conception here. You know, that was a crazy read, things like that. But, it's interesting that, your story is somewhat similar to mine, especially when you said to your mother that you don't feel like you're from here. Because I've had that many times in my life where things would be going on in the world. I'd be kind of looking at my life or just in a sense, doing a soul searching moment. And I'd be like, I just don't even understand the suffering of this realm. Like so I always feel like I don't really get why there's suffering in this realm. And so I would always feel like I must be from somewhere else. I must come from a place where there was no suffering as part of the existence. You know what I'm saying? Because I just cannot stand suffering. Yeah. So
amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. That's real, man. Yeah.
So, I'm a little bit on. I'm less. I would say I'm less versed in some of these theories. I'm familiar with some of the general concepts, and I'm open-minded to it. But a lot of times, even just hanging out with Armand, he'll tell me a little bit more about this perspective of things. So, from what I've gathered, and even some of the interviews with you that I've watched in the past, there's these ancient civilizations that seem to have had contact with extraterrestrial forms. And then I assume there's a point in history where that becomes hidden. When do you think that happens? When does it get to a point in the chronology where that part of the backstory gets buried?
Yeah, it's around the quote unquote what they call the death of Christ in that time frame. Now, what's amazing is, and even based on my research, I don't believe that there was a crucifixion of any type of Yeshua, who was actually, we know him now as Jesus Christ, but the name Jesus actually means Hail Zeus. Nobody should really be calling him that. It was a real person though, because I've been to his house in Egypt, where he disappeared from the Bible and went to Egypt to learn the Egyptian mysteries, to go then to
Egyptian
Tibet to learn Reiki healing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. He did all that. And there's a book called The Gospel of the Holy 12, which it's an ancient scripture, and it's very expensive. You can find a used version for like $150, but a mint like I got was like $650. And then you find out that he went to Tibet to do Reiki healing, and he went to India to learn the mystic arts, and he taught reincarnation. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because around that time frame, you begin to then, when you go into the Apocrypha text, you realize that his grandmother, Mary's mother, was a virgin birth. So that's artificial insemination. When you see that happening, you see that there's interactions here. So right around that time frame of this Yeshua figure is when the separation started to become like they became more hidden figures, and now they're moving more mysteriously. We're going to artificially inseminate his grandmother. Then through that line, we're going to bring this up the second artificial insemination, which was Yeshua. And in my opinion, he's probably half human, half Anunnaki, or he could be all Anunnaki or Atlantean that decided a new way. They discovered a new technology to bring themselves through a womb and come back with full memories to experience the perspective of growing up as a human. Because when you live for tens of thousands of years, you get bored and you want to find out. All human beings and everything in the universe is on a data collection mission. That's all we do is collect information. We collect data and process it. As a being that's that intelligent, eventually you get, let me come through the womb and see what it's like to be one of them. And it could be Thoth himself who did this. So Yeshua could be Thoth the Atlantean, the same person that I wrote about in my book. It could be another incarnation of himself. He used to transfer into avatar bodies. This time he could have tried to come through a womb of a human being. So around that time frame is when we start to see the separation, and they become more hidden, and then they become more mystical god figures, sky daddies, if you will, with magic wands, versus a person that is actually interacting directly with the human population. And even Thoth talks about it in the Emerald Tablets that he's gonna leave for a while, and he said, "Keep my commandments." He's talking to the man of Kim. Keep my commandments and all the teachings that I've done with you, but I'm going to go away for a while. And after he was gone for an extended period of time, the pyramid priests deified him after he left. All of a sudden, now he became a god. When he was there, he ruled over as a king for 14,000 years. When he disappeared, he actually left and went to Mesoamerica and kickstarted the Mayan civilization. But when he was gone for a while, all of a sudden he became a god. We keep doing that. But after the Mayan civilization disappeared, when the Teotihuacans left that's when it really vanished globally, this Atlantean civilization. So right around that time frame, it just started to they went hidden on everything. And why? There's no real explanation as to why. It almost seems as if this is some type of a potential growing period or a small window of opportunity to see what mankind's going to do, how they can expand. But there are also these other bloodlines that were left behind that are still here that want to keep that information suppressed from the general population of the world, because once we wake up to that, they can't rule over us anymore. So this is ruling oligarchy that's trying to keep this knowledge hidden of their own ancestors and our ancestors so that they can keep the power and control over us. And if we all will wake up tomorrow and realize what the real ancient history was, that there were advanced beings engaging mankind that looked just like us and we look just like them, and that there probably is a creator of the universe, but the ones written about in these holy books aren't the creator of the universe, and then religious systems will collapse. You're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Just in America alone, the religious money generates in 1 year more than all of the tech companies in Silicon Valley combined. You never hear about that on the news. That's just in 1 year. So that's a multi-trillion-dollar global industry collapsing overnight. Fiat system currency collapsing, taxes collapse. All these things collapse. Why? Because we just say, you know what, we're not playing your game anymore. We're not going to go to work. We're not going to pay our bills. We're not going to pay mortgage and student loan payments. We're not going to do any of this anymore. When hundreds of millions of people do it at once, the system collapses and starts anew, and that's what they're trying to avoid. But they can't. No. But do you
feel that's inevitable, going to happen in a sense, and even in somewhat in the future? Like it kind of, I just feel like, I feel like certain things are coming to a head in certain ways. It's tough to say because history's been through a lot already, but do you feel that it's like things are coming to a head where it's like, you know what, the system, so if you think about it, reality is free will through choice, right? So we've got into this, somebody invented, you have 2 cows and I have 2 goats, but I need those goats. You know what I'm saying? And so that started the bartering thing. And then somebody said, oh, let's make money. Then now we're in this system of capitalism. Yeah. But we didn't have to, when we first had the cows and the goats, we could have just gave each other the cows and the goats.
Right.
Like, exactly. We didn't have to go and steer down this path. So now I feel like whatever time frame that was, we chose unwisely. And we're in this reality now. And it's like, I think this reality time window has had its run. And I think it's like the hitting the reset button fully is probably overdue, you know? Like, what do you think?
Entropy exists and permeates the entire universe. Entropy states in science that all things move from an ordered state to a disordered state.
To disorder,
All things, you know, including life and then death and then rebirth. So it resets. Everything has reset. There is no empire in any book, and I've read over 1,000 books now. There's no empire ever that I've read that persisted forever. And neither will this empire that we're currently in right now, this global hegemonic, empire that's running this planet right now, that won't persist forever. And because of that, everything has this window of opportunity. And this window is closing very slowly, but it's closing. So eventually we will head back up into another golden age. And in the golden age, there is no racism. There is no police brutality. There is no capitalism. None of this stuff exists in a golden age. Lifespans are extended. Unconditional love is your currency. Your status in society is how good are you at what you do and how you help others. You know, all these types of things. There's a whole new way of living that's coming to this planet. And we are literally like the pioneers, and we're planting seeds that are going to grow into big trees that are going to have huge shades, but we're probably never going to sit in that shade. But we're planting the seeds to make that happen. So we're like the pioneers, and we'll watch it happen from another dimension. But these avatar bodies will expire before that happens.
I have a question about that, about the idea of avatar bodies, and even the idea that certain alien beings visited us and possibly even infiltrated human civilization. You know, just to zoom out and look at this from a more sort of statistical standpoint. You know, on one hand, statistically, aliens really must exist, right? Like, there's the odds that we're the only planet with some sort of life form are pretty much impossible. But also statistically, in my opinion anyways, the odds that aliens would look sort of human-like, anthropomorphic, the idea that an alien form would have a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and even be in the same scale of size as us are kind of thin. An alien could be microscopic, or it could be, you know, the size of our whole planet. That could be one being. So what leads you to believe that there were aliens that were even comparable to us that visited us?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, you brought up a very good topic, and I'm glad nobody's ever brought this up before. Okay. And I'm glad you did, because this is a great discussion. First of all, you're right. Aliens can come in any various shapes and sizes. We've got extremophiles on this planet. Extremophiles that don't live on oxygen; they live on acid, and some live on carbon monoxide. And so we got these aliens that are kind of really already here, and it could be anything on any planet, any size, any shape, any form, any color. Now, when you go deep into the tablets, I'm talking about beyond the Sumerian tablets, into the Mahabharata, all these ancient texts, you know, and you dig into them, you start to realize that there was the origins of this hominid body on this planet originated in the Pleiades. So in the Pleiades, which is what they call the 7 sisters, is talked about in Homer's Iliad, is talked about in the Bible. It's talked about
the Pleiades star system. Yeah.
The Pleiades star system. I have a lot of artifacts that I've collected from around the world, and replica of a lot of artifacts that exist in museums, and 80% of them have the Pleiades on them. Yeah. I just got back from Australia, in the Australian bush with all the fires, and found a proto-Egyptian temple, makeshift temple, etched into the stone. Is on one side is the Pleiades, and the other side is proto-Egyptian. One side can't be translated, the other side can. This has already been verified by the Board of Antiquities of Cairo, that it's real proto-Egyptian here, and it's ancient because there's patina in the grooves of the glyphs, which can be dated. So we know that's going back 6,000 years. And the point being is, even there we have these Pleiadian glyphs. So the Aboriginal people, who I met with the Aboriginal elders, they're the first people. They claim that they're the first people on this planet, and they were brought here by who? The Pleiadians. And so you find that there's a galactic war in that region of space The Pleiades looks like 7 stars, but it's really millions of stars. The way it's set up from Earth, it looks like 7 glowing stars. And in that star system, this ancient galactic war, they had something called a destroyer. The destroyer of worlds, or the Brahma weapon in the Mahabharata. It can destroy any man on 3 planets. It literally was a planet destroyer. This thing started blowing up planets. Debris chunks the size of half of Earth was smashing into other planets and inhabited planets. People were fleeing, whoever can get away. They became space refugees. It sounds like a story, incredible movie, which is called Chronicles of the Anunnaki. I'm making a movie based on these tablets. They started going to the Aldebaran, Epsilon Boötis star system, Sirius, Orion, the various star systems where we know, and then also some crash landed on a planet orbiting a brown dwarf named in the Jewish Torah Marduk, in the Sumerian tablets in Umelish, Nibiru. Okay, and it got captured gravitationally by our solar system. These were people that looked like us. Slight variations here and there, slight variations in sizes as well. We discovered that according to the writings of the scribes of the Sumerians, a lot of these guys were pretty big. The older ancient ones like Enlil and Enki and Anu and Ninmah and all of those people when they got here. As they began to mate with humans and co-create with humans, the sizes started dropping. 20 feet, 15 feet, 13 feet, 10 feet, 7 feet. So the sizes started dropping gradually. But this same bilateral bipedal form seems to be standard. Now, there's another ancient text called the Terra Papers, which are from the Native American tribe, I think it's Lakota. No, I'm sorry, not Lakota. It's the other tribe here.
Anasazi?
The blue Kachina and the red Kachina. It'll come back to me in a second, the name of the tribe.
Yeah.
But, they have the documents. And the documents, they literally read like Star Wars, the movie series. And when you read them, they talk about the creation or the formation of life on other planets that were discovered, all starting out animal-like. Eventually, somebody seeds these planets with bilateral bipedal hominid type. Now, some were insectoid type, some were human-like us type, some were reptilian style type, but all of them had the same thing in common. You can slice us in half, and you can split us in, we have equal parts, and we have fingers that can manipulate. So what it seemed like, according to these Terra Papers, when you really dig into them, you start to realize that all the ones that were that became sentient beings and were able to leave their planets to go travel the stars, all had hands and eyes and almost walked upright in most cases. And because of we have these hands and the sentient consciousness, we can manipulate our environment. Whereas other animals, like a whale, is probably more intelligent than a human, but because it doesn't have hands that can manipulate the environment, it's stuck in the ocean. It can't come out of the water and walk around. And even though we're much weaker and in a lot of cases less intelligent, we have these which help us to manipulate the environment around us. And because of that, we have the ability to leave. And all these species have that same thing in common: bilateral, bipedal hominids with hands that can manipulate their surroundings, their environment, and leave and go into space. So as a matter of fact, I think George Lucas probably read the Terra Papers, 40, 50 years ago. And he made the movie series based on this because it's the exact story except the love stories and stuff. I mean, it's the exact same story. It's really amazing. You gotta check it out.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I just think we're hominids like this are everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it could also just be that's the architecture of the universe in itself, is that maybe all planets evolve on their own just through time. And through the environments of that particular solar system, and then some types of life, like certain temps, and it evolves on that thing, and then eventually somebody comes along, like the Anunnaki or us, 10,000 years in the future, or you name it, and it's not necessarily what's the term spermia. right?
Panspermia.
Panspermia, yeah. Not panspermia. It could just be, because panspermia is stuff from asteroids.
Does that mean like cross insemination between?
Right.
Panspermia means like asteroids, bringing life to planets that don't have life yet, but they have the environment that's ripe for life. They just need that asteroid with life on it to start the life there. But it's a long process to get, let's say, a chimpanzee. But the thing is like supposedly there's a theory that all worlds that, I hate to use the term intelligent life because, like you said, a whale could be more intelligent than a human, but in a sense, like you said, bipedal hands that manipulate its environment. Yeah. Supposedly, there's a theory that every planet has gotten to our stage where there's a hybridization program that happens. It just, the people come down here, they just go, hey, we want like, either they just love it down here, or they create some beings, or they like some of the natural beings that are here, like our early Neanderthal or Cro-Magnon, and they just I don't know, they just want to procreate with them, and then it's just like
we're very inquisitive. Yeah. We like to we ask questions, we explore. We send probes out into space. We want to see what's going on, and if we had the capability, besides the hidden programs like the Just Us, me and you, I would be on a ship tomorrow if I could. And I'd go observe another civilization that's a budding, growing civilization, and I'd monitor and watch them. As a matter of fact, in my book, Thoth himself talks about visiting other planets and watching civilizations rise and fall. So this is crazy. Yeah. And so we would do it too. So we're already doing, we go and set up these hides in the Sahara, and we get inside of these hides and we put the cameras and we watch the leopards and we watch the lions, and we just want to see how they live and how they die and everything else. Well, that's what's happening to us right now. There's beings that are a million years ahead of us that are doing the same thing to us.
Well, that part's interesting to me too, because, again, even to touch on one of the things I mentioned earlier, the odds that alien life forms exist are pretty undoubtable. But the part that I find a little bit more challenging to compute sometimes is, for an alien life form to exist on another planet is one thing, but for it to be able, or even for us at one point to be able to travel to other planets or other galaxies and observe, there's so many things that become obstacles to that. If you think about humans, even temperature, right? Like if climate change changes the temperature of our planet by like 3 degrees, a whole bunch of shit goes wrong. Ice caps melt, disease changes. So if we go on another planet where the temperature is hundreds of degrees different, we can't survive. And another thought on that is the more observing ourselves, the more humanity evolves. As much as you were mentioning that we're curious and we observe the animals in the Sahara and the whales and this and that, I find that humans are looking inward more and more, and like microchips are developing at a rate where we could probably just analyze everything on a computer sooner than we could go out to outer space. So the part that I find at least less certain is the idea of space travel and going from one planet to the other. I think thinking about the knowledge of humanity throughout history, I feel like humans are quick to make a theory, swear that it's real until it gets proven wrong, and then make another theory, swear that it's real, and so on, right? And so I think it's important for us to always keep a certain amount of skepticism in our theories. And so, right? And the without being critical, because I really admire your knowledge and how deep you've gotten into this. You speak about certain alien forms and historical facts with a lot of certainty, and is that because so many different historical civilizations have pointed to the same story? Is it because you're getting the same accounts from so many different civilizations that you're saying this must be true?
Occam's razor, right?
Yeah, well, I read over 1,000 texts. I mean, you have Drake's equation, which talks about the amount of life that it potentially exists right around us. But going into these texts, getting the same story from civilizations all around the entire planet
that's interesting to me.
But came from the sky, and that we resembled them in some way. There were some distinguishing factors, otherwise, but other than that, for the most part, the physiology was very similar. And we're talking about many civilizations around the planet through many time frames going back as far as you can go, even going back 36,000 years to the animal tablets of Thoth. It still comes up with the same exact scenario. But then when I started doing the anomaly hunting, so I formed an organization called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, UFA for short, UFAH. And it's 14 of us. And we started gathering data from the European Space Agency, NASA, the Russian Space Agency, China, India, all the space agencies. We collected all their data. In other words, they transmit all the space probe images back, and some video and some sound as well, believe it or not, from some of these planets and moons that we've sent probes to. So we've downloaded over 1 million images, and out of that, we've got about 58,000 anomalies cataloged, well-cataloged things that are real anomalies that should not, in other words, they don't belong where they are. Things that look like they don't belong there.
Is that called OOP-arts?
OOP-arts, yes, exactly.
OOP-arts, yeah.
Yes, they don't belong there. These things are
artifacts, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, they look intelligently designed.
Yeah.
Now, when you start analyzing and realizing, okay, yes, you can go to another planet and you may not be able to withstand the barometric pressure. You may not be able to withstand the temperature swings unless you have technology. Like the Anunnaki, when they came here initially, they had to genetically modify themselves to adjust to planet Earth. So initially they had these special suits on. The Dogons said they looked like fishmen, and various people said they looked like birds and reptiles, but the bird was really a helmet. They used to walk around with the eagle's mask, they called it. And anytime they would take a trip in their ship, they would put the eagle's mask on. It was probably a helmet that had the eagle painted on the side for whatever intensive purposes. And, you know, less developed people say, oh, it's an eagle mask. It's they're birdman or whatever. But they looked like they had on, you know, these types of suits. They had bigger eyes because their planet was darker. They would wear these goggles. A lot of the artifacts that I have, you always see these beings with these special kind of goggles on. They have these special wristwatches and these bags, which kind of look like life support bags. I did a whole video on this. When you look at the life support bags of the astronauts getting on the Apollo missions, they look just like the same exact bag that the Anunnaki are carrying. And that bag, they're carrying this bag everywhere you see them all around the world. Even in Mexico, you see the Anunnaki etched into stone with the bag. You look in Iraq, you look in Egypt. And then when you start analyzing all of the different cultures, India, you have Shiva, and you have all these people. Some are blue, some are green. In Africa, which is in Egypt, is in Africa. You have depictions of Ra, who's blue. Okay, and according to the indigenous people there, this man that was considered to be a god was really blue. Shiva was also blue. So you have all these blue people that were around. You had so many different variations, all kind of still having a similar look. But when you look at the data that came back from Mercury, now Mercury is the first planet to the sun in our solar system. It's supposed to be very hot, raining molten lead. Guess what? Throw that all out the window, because the Mercury Messenger mission just debunked all of that. And NASA had to rewrite their own books, their own science books. Mercury rotates once on its axis every 60 days or so. We rotate in 24 hours. It takes 60 days for it to make one rotation on its own axis. Okay. Now, because of that, the majority of the planet is not in direct sunlight. It's being shielded from the sun. Then they discovered that there's huge pockets and areas on Mercury that have billions of tons of liquid water and organic, this is their exact statement, organic material on Mercury. And billions of tons of ice as well when you go towards the poles. So I started looking into the science data that came back. All of a sudden, Mercury has 41% oxygen. Earth has 22%, I believe. They have argon gas, the same gases we have, krypton and helium, and all the same gas that we're breathing in right now. We don't breathe in 100% oxygen, we pass out. We breathe in a combination of gases. And on Mercury, those same gases exist. We can now, the only difference is the gravity. If you went from Earth to Mercury, because Mercury is so much smaller than Earth, you'd be a Superman. Okay. If you go from Earth to Mars, you'd be able to pick up a giant boulder the size of a small car and throw it right now today, because you grew up inside of Earth's gravity. This is where we get a lot of the accounts of these supermen coming to Earth, and they call them the heroes of old, and these savants. They had all this strength. They came from bigger planets. Nibiru was supposedly 6 times larger than Earth. All of a sudden you come here, you genetically modify yourself, you adjust to this atmosphere, adjust to the lighting over time, but you have all this strength. You're like a Superman. You could jump over a building if you wanted to, because your gravity, your bone density is based on a gravity 6 times that of Earth. So it's so many things that can come into play. And yes, you're right.
Sure.
It's all theory. It's all conjecture. We're all I'm basing what I know off of what I've read and the accounts of people that are long gone and passed away. But when I just see the consistency of the story over time from people who didn't relate, that's just kind of where I come up with the theory, and a lot of people have as well. But there still is a question mark there. Could it be possible that it's all just mythological misunderstandings? It's all possible as well. But I just kind of go with, like, in court, you have circumstantial evidence. You can be put in prison for that. So that's kind of the way I go,
Yeah. Actually, so Armand, I know you had a couple theories to bring up. Do you want to bring those up?
I have theories all day long, so I got to be careful with my theories. But one that goes back to what you were saying about, Alen, you were kind of asking about space travel and how is that even possible, and how's this, and then Billy was talking about the various forms, and actually, how they can, in a sense, assume a form where they're from, and the differences in their gravity and the planets. And I'm cool. I'm 100% in with that. But I had a theory that's relative to that, so I've also read a lot of the spiritual side of things, just where it's just the spirit. So the spirit in a gaseous state, which I believe all we are really is spirit on a journey, and that spirit only knows to refine. So it's like, in a sense, a light. It's kind of like, it's like taking away all of the descriptions in a book and language, and none of it's important. It's like there's a spirit, and it's of this universe everywhere, and all it wants to do is have experience and to refine itself. That's all it knows. And so it'll when we're born, you're born into a body, but there's a spirit encased in it. So the body's just a vessel. So now you're bound to, like, while we're speaking in the millions of other worlds in the universe, or billions, and there's things that are being born in dimensional states like ours that are going through the same process, so it's kind of like the spirit is just a thing everywhere that all it knows is to refine. So with that said, for traveling through space, what I was thinking was that these extraterrestrials, aliens, whatever, have found a way to know there is no death. There's no such thing as death. The spirit does not die, the body dies. And they know that. So what they did was they found a way to manipulate the spirit and know they don't die with the next realm that they arrive to with technology. This is an odd theory, but I'm thinking that that's what they do is they go, if we can assume a gaseous state and we don't necessarily need the boundaries of the dangers of the universe as a body, they could just travel as a spirit, which can be anywhere at any time. It's only when they want to come down to a third dimensional world, if you want to say, that they have to assume a form. That's just a crazy theory. I don't know if I'm off, but So,
no, I don't think you're off at all. I talked about this in several of my lectures. There's different types of beings and different densities. Right now we're in the third density, right? The third dimension. Now, because we're in the third dimension, we can easily observe the second and the first dimension. The first dimension, we draw lines on paper. That's we do that when we were kids. We were manipulating the first dimension. Okay. Second dimension is two-dimensional objects like CAD designs on computers and so forth. It's two-dimensional. It has two lines that intersect, give it an illusion of an angle or illusion of density that really doesn't exist. And because of that, if you draw a house that looks like a box on a piece of paper, because we're in the third dimension, we can see in any room we want to in that house. We can even manipulate what we have drawn there or computerized there or digitized. Then you have us in the third dimension, X on XYZ axis, that gives us this up, down, left, right mobility. But then there's beings above us in the fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way through the 11th dimension. And from any dimension higher than the third, the past, present, and future exist all at once. We have an illusion of an arrow of time to point us in a specific direction so that we don't get too confused, so that we can make it to this Zoom meeting at exactly 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Higher beings in different densities that may be more etherical, that don't need the avatar meat suit that we have on, you know, they're observing us from a different perspective. We imagine a house, and in the house there's rooms, and in those rooms we're all in different rooms of the house at different times. And so they're observing us in different rooms doing different things at the same time in that house. That's the best I can kind of, you know, compactify it. But there are, in my opinion, beings that have the capability of phase shifting their frequency, because everything exists on the entire universe is a frequency. They phase shift their frequency to match the frequency of the density they want to go into. There's some real advanced people out there. So they can literally transfer from a fifth dimension into a third, and they can take on an avatar body. In the Emerald Tablets, Thoth talks about the fact that they saw the men on this density suffering. And he says that we assumed bodies, or we created bodies and went down to interact with them or engage with them. And they said they walk amongst men, but unlike a man. So you're talking about people that potentially coming from other dimensions and interacting. And not only that, when we developed the technology, we've already discovered that we're living in a multiverse. If we can identify the atomic frequency of that multiverse, and then we develop the technology that can phase shift our atomic frequency to match, we can walk right into another universe. And it's not far, because everything is compactified on top of each other. I mean, less than Planck units connected above the 90-degree angles. So to get to the next dimension up in a 90-degree angle, it's literally just a matter of matching the frequency, and you slip right into it. There's nowhere to go, no ship to get into. There's no car to drive in. There's no rocket ship you need. You walk from one step into another place just like that. Yeah. And this also, what we're talking about, proves my theory about traveling in time. If you travel back in time, the reason why you have the grandfather paradox is because, you know, they say, well, if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, that means you shouldn't have been born to travel back in time in the first place. Mm-hmm. When you travel back in time, you've changed frequency. And when you change frequency, you're traveling back in time, but on a different timeline. So you're not on the same timeline that birthed you. You're on a timeline that you exist and everybody else exists, but you're on a timeline that is not yours. So you can go back in time and kill your grandfather because you're in a multiverse now. You've shifted from your frequency to another when you travel back in time. So these are the things that kind of, but I really do believe that there are multidimensionals, there are spiritual beings. They have developed this spiritual technology that allows them to and just reappear anywhere they want in a galaxy or in the universe because they understand the connectivity of things and that everything is connected. So they use quantum entanglement to travel. They don't travel with warp drives and rockets and QM drives and all that. They travel with through quantum entanglement. They entangle with the location they want to arrive at, and they're there. And all information is available to them because all information exists in space-time. Every thought that we're thinking right now is leaving our skull as an electromagnetic wave right now, permanently. And when that wave leaves out of your skull into space-time, and this is proven because I could put a cap on your head right now connected to a computer, and every thought you're thinking goes to a computer because it picks up the light waves. This is a light universe. So all those light waves, which are invisible to the naked eye because we're so limited, we only see 1% of the spectrum, they go out there. So all information, every thought, every idea, every concept exists in space-time already. There's beings out there that have the capability of just matching frequencies and getting and downloading information. And humans do it too. We just don't realize that we're doing it. Oh, I got a great idea. Oh, I got an invention. You might have just matched the frequency of information that already exists, and you were able to discern it, download it, digest it, and then act upon it to make it like I invented a battery. Well, maybe I just downloaded the information that already existed on how to make this battery. And I was
the Akashic record, right? Yeah, exactly. Akashic record, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. I got another question here. Just going to my notes, sorry. You know Erykah Badu, of course, right?
Oh, yeah.
The artist. Okay, awesome. So she did that song On and On, like her breakout song, and then the late 90s, I think. Yeah, late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had this saying. So I grew up in New York City. And, you know, like you said, like when you grew up with, the thing is, I think it's important when you find the esoteric in a sense, I think it's important to have a crew. By the way, I just want something that I'm throwing out there. I think you can't just be by yourself and sit in like a room. And you need to have theories and have a good crew that also has their angles. And then you guys find some kind of middle ground, and everybody humbles and says, you can get into just good argumentative material, and it helps each other to evolve, you know. But outside of that, I grew up with kind of a crew in my day too. And, and you know, when Erykah Badu came around, like, yes, finally, like an artist that's kind of like speaking what we're speaking, you know, in a sense. And so she says this line and on. It's the man that knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. And that line always resonated with me. So basically what I'm going to ask is, like, with all the books and overwhelming data on the esoteric, sometimes I feel it's just really bringing me back at least to the simplest of things. And if anything, it's predominantly teaching unconditional love of everyone and everything in this existence. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, you hit it right on the head. Okay. Over 1,000 books later now, 20 years of reading, studying, researching, digesting. And I don't just read books. I break down the root words. Sure. I go into like, what was it previously translated from? I dig deep into information, especially when it comes to biblical texts and Quran and everything else. I really dig deep to go back into the source material, because that's all plagiarized material. But I come up with the same exact ending every time. Unconditional love, empathy, and that's conscious extension. How do you become an adept initiate? How do you become an ascended master? It's all about how you treat yourself, how you treat loving yourself, how you love others, and how you have empathy for others, and how you are in service to others. When you put those things together, all of a sudden you're in a utopia. You're in a golden age. So all the clues have been left behind. Unfortunately, they've been manipulated and twisted for control purposes and things like that. But the underlying story is literally always the same. What can you do for not only for yourself, but for mankind? What can you bring to society? How can you help people? How can you embrace everyone? That's really what the message always comes back to. And so now I see how they have a golden age, because when everybody gets into synchronicity with that same process, that same thought pattern, everything is golden, you know, and it happened. It already happened 4 times just on this planet. And it's going to happen again. We're going into the 5th age. The age of Aquarius starts in 2025, and we're in the silver age. The golden age is the next, swing around the Yuga cycle. So we're in that beginning stage in that push. And I think the age of Aquarius officially starting in 2025, we're going to see some amazing things. We're seeing the rumblings now of mankind's consciousness and this awakening on the planet, and a lot of the things that are going to be cast away and thrown aside as we move towards this age of Aquarius. And I think that's going to be the beginning of a real, true, heavy, big time awakening that's going to really usher in a lot of unconditional love and start that process as we try to speed up towards that golden age.
Cool. Great. Awesome.
When I listen, yeah, exactly.
Great news.
When I hear both of you talk about unconditional love and about how that's the sort of ultimate goal, it makes me think of the word harmony and the various meanings of the word harmony, right? Because on a sort of physics level, harmony applies to the various frequencies that mesh well together, right? So we know in our physical realm that light and sound are frequencies, but Billy, you were also saying that thoughts and all these other things between sentient beings have frequencies as well. And if all those frequencies are in harmony, then maybe the universe ends up in a better place. Exactly.
That's totally true. And because our energy patterns, our energy frequencies, they ride out of our body, out of our heart center, like a torus energy field. They broadcast out. This is real science. We have this field that broadcasts out 8 to 10 feet, sometimes as much as 15 feet. So as you're walking through even a crowded room, and you could say, it's bad energy in here. You really feel the bad energy because your field interacting with other people's fields. When I was at MIT studying neuroscience, I learned from the professor, Dr. Tara Swart. something that I had theorized but never really had confirmation until that day. And I was so happy that I was there because she talked about the fact that if somebody is stressed out, their energy field is also carrying cortisol that's emitted from the body. So this cortisol is in their field. And if you're close to that person, their cortisol gets trapped in your field and gets sucked into your body and raises your stress levels. So this is real science, guys. This is MIT, you know? So we're talking about just being around somebody that's angry, sick, afraid, whatever. Those hormones in their field are now being downloaded into your field and sucked right into your body, affecting your physiology. You know, so it's like everything is frequencies and understanding them. So when you have a massive amount of people that are thinking a specific kind of way and starting to understand things a specific way and saying, you know what, bump this system. I'm going to love this person. I'm going to see what I can do to help this person. When that becomes viral, which it gradually, very slowly, but it is, now it just starts to become a positive virus that takes over the planet. Everybody just becomes on this same conscious frequency. You have no way, shape, or form that you can't become a golden age civilization. Technologically, spiritually, you know, emotionally, everybody's going to eventually get to that point. That crescendo is going to come in a positive direction. It can't be stopped. Because one thing I learned studying darkness and light, which is primarily what the Animal Tablets is about, darkness and light and battling it. We're not really battling it. It's really more like that Kung Fu master talked about. How do you manage darkness? Because, you know, he goes, I'm not teaching you how to fight. I'm teaching you how to manage the darkness, how to manage this evil. And so the more I look into it, I realize that, wow, we are in a situation where eventually police officers and judges and politicians and scientists and people in control of these big projects, they're all going to become conscious. So what happens when all these people are conscious? The system begins to then slowly evolve and change and redevelop itself into a better system. And eventually, you know, the whole economy is gonna change as well. When before 9/11 happened, there's a computer program out there. Forget the name of this computer program. You can look it up on Google. There's a group of scientists that were studying conscious frequencies and of the planet. And before 9/11, they started seeing this random number calculator that was calculating the frequency of consciousness on the planet, started to escalate and build up before 9/11. And then when 9/11 came, of course, it crescendoed. So they found out through this study that the human body is receiving a stream of information. The human avatar is receiving a stream of information, a frequency, if you will, and then everybody starts to pick up on it, and it starts to literally manifest itself in every person. So I started looking into that deeper when I found out about this study, and I found a study that was done several times around the world in different facilities where they would put people in rooms, they would put the cap on with electrodes to pick up their electromagnetic frequencies from their brain, connect it to a computer, and they would put pictures on the screen. And these pictures, this is just one version of the test. They had all kind of random tests that would blow you away, but one of them, so the pictures would be a bed of roses, a sunset, a woman, you know, embracing a child, somebody getting stabbed to death, somebody getting shot. So it was a mixture of peace and tranquility and horror, right? And so they would space these images 10 seconds apart. What started happening in every single case study, up to 7 seconds in advance, the human brain was sending to the computer what the next image was going to be.
Wow.
Okay. Now, what does that tell you? We're not living in real time. So what we assume to be what we consider real time in the third dimension is actually a delay between the consciousness stream that comes in through the multi dimensions to synchronize with this avatar body that we pick up that frequency that says this is us. It's just one consciousness, but we're just we're like a dial on the radio. You tune to 99.1, 99.2. I'm 0.1, you're 0.2, you're 0.3, so on and so on. We pick up the frequency. But what's happening is consciousness has already observed this situation up to 7 seconds before we're able to discern it. Okay, this is mind-blowing stuff. So you begin to realize that how do you then now, I call it like you're surfing a wave. So there's a wave and you can be on top of the wave when you're awake. you can be at the top of this crescent, and as the wave goes across the ocean, you're at the top. You're closest to the real time. You're not in real time, but you're closer to it. Your discernment speed is that much faster because you're picking up right from the universe and discerning it a lot faster. The other people at the bottom of the wave, and it crashes on them. And so when the wave crashes, that's when they go, oh, this just happened. So they're really behind. So the people that seem to be able to manipulate and move and manifest in the best way in different areas of their life are riding that particular frequency from the top of the wave. They found a way to get to the top of that wave and get that information more real time. You know, even looking at your computer screen and looking at me, it seems almost real time. But the time that it takes the photon to bounce from your computer to hit your retina, to go to the back of the brain and decipher what you're seeing, to say, oh, that's Billy talking, that takes time. So by the time you get that, I've already moved. You see? So that's what makes quantum encryption so good. You can, because you can't know the spin rate and the location of an atom at the same time. Because when you try to find a location, you got to ping a photon off of it so the atom moves. You know? So, you know, we're not in a real time dimension. We're delayed. And the best that we can do is get in sync so that with our universal consciousness so that we can get as close to real time data as we possibly can, so that we can be able to discern things and make better decisions and foresee upcoming events, foresee the situation happening, and be able to tap into that energy field that has all the information in it, versus being the person at the bottom of the crest where it just crashes on them and then they go, oh, this just happened. You know, they're delayed response. This is why so many people are so far behind in a lot of things, and they're waiting for that wave to crash versus learning how to ride that wave.
That's crazy.
That's awesome. Cool. I mean, you've given us a ton of knowledge and things to chew on. I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, I was going to just say, Billy, if there's anything that you want to...
Do you have any more time, or?
Well, Billy, I could probably spare about another 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll do one quickie then, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Just one more question. A-trak, do you have any more, or no?
No, I'm good. I was just going to say, after your question, Billy, if there's anything that you want to promote or announce, or anything that you want our viewership to see, let's make sure we keep a little bit of time for that. But Armand, go ahead.
Yeah, real. It's as quick as you can. It's a long subject, but I had a Zachariah Sitchin question. I'm just going to skip that thing. So, so we talked earlier about the Law of One books, about people that have they're somewhat mediums, which means they can sit there and go into a deep state of meditation, and through that deep state can speak to interdimensional beings from another dimension. It just sounds outlandish, but I'm just going to have to explain it as it is. And they sit there kind of like laid out in a bed, and then there's a couple other people in the room that speak through that person, and that person is basically channeling the somebody else from other space and time, from somewhere, and they're able to speak in the language of English. I guess let's say it's a person from England, and they are able to just have a conversation. And I've read the Law of One books and stuff like that. And the thing that blew me away with the most with those books is that, first of all, there's 5 volumes. It's this one woman. She's doing all the channeling. It's insanely detailed. Like if somebody was making this up, I mean, it was years of this woman's life. I mean, it's just, it's so insanely detailed on what Alain and you were discussing, which is frequency and light and sound being all matter and frequency. They go through that so much in those books. I'm like, there's no way that, like, in a sense, she's just sitting there making it up. You know what I mean?
No, so I don't think you can just babble out that detailed.
Yes, exactly. And what I want to come around to in the question is that the interesting thing. So these books were written in the early '80s, and now many things in science, we're talking over 30 years ago, there's things I've read in that book that I mentioned to people after I read those books that have now come as scientific fact. And they were in those books. She channeled that information back then, and I find that fascinating. So what do you think about that? What do you think about that?
It's 1,000% real. Because if your mind is outside of space and outside of time, and I learned this in remote viewing. I was trained in remote viewing by Major Ed Dames, Project Stargate. They've got movies about this man, the Man at Stare Goats is one of them. But so through that training, you can send your mind not only outside of where you are on this earth and outside of your body, but you can send your mind to even other dimensions and other times. So the fact that somebody can get into a dream, a semi-sleep, semi-awake dream kind of state where they're awake, but they're sleeping, but they're not, that semi-state where they're able and open to get and receive information. To me, it's not even far-fetched that the human brain, which is like a tuning fork, we have millions of magnetite crystals in our brain, millions of them. So if we've got millions of magnetite crystals and we learn now that crystals can transmit and receive information, crystal set radios, right? What's stopping a entity from a higher dimension from sending a frequency that can be picked up by the crystals? Those crystals in our brain interact with something called the neurocorrelates of consciousness. That's 3 giant neurons that wrap around the inside of the skull. And guess what? When you look at them on a MRI, guess what it looks like? A crown of thorns. Not familiar with the story. Crown of thorns. That's inside of all of our heads. We have the crown of thorns. It was really an esoteric message that was being talked about in the Bible, not the real crown of thorns. So we have this crown of thorns. It's connected to these magnetite crystals. And so those 2 things together, literally, and the frontal cortex, along with those 3, the neocortex, the Neo from the Matrix, that's what they call the Neo. Because it has to do with spatial reasoning and manipulation and manifestation. So those 3 things together allow the ability to receive and download a frequency and then decode it. Okay, and we're all walking around with that machine inside of our body right now, that decoding machine. So for somebody to get into the right frequency consciously to receive information, to me, it's not even outlandish, because to me, we all do it every single day, and we aren't even aware of it. This person is actually aware of it and able to now decode and decipher the information and say, okay, blah, 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 blah. And the amount of information that was given out over that amount of time, that's very detailed and very extremely quantum physics scientific, is not just random blobbing. And just like in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, the reason why this book is a bestseller is because I stop you where Thoth is talking and I break down the quantum physics. I break down the science. I break down what we have technologically now that matches to what was being talked about in the ancient past that this gentleman is talking about. For example, he talks about using photons and cymatic frequencies to manifest bricks and stones. Well, now I bring up the science article where just a few years ago in the UK, they discovered, a group of scientists got together and discovered how to turn lights into solid matter for the first time. We're just rediscovering everything. There is nothing new under the sun, so to speak, just like in Ecclesiastes in the Bible. That's what it says. There's nothing new under the sun. That's a very true statement. It's a rediscovery of everything that already was here, everything that already existed. If an EMP bomb blew up over America and knocked out all of our devices, we'd have no nuclear fallout because it's going to give us an electromagnetic pulse. Cell phone dead, computers dead, all the transistors dead and everything. Now, what's going to happen? First generation is us of this catastrophe. We're going to remember all the technology. We're going to try to fix some things here and there. But overall, man, that level is going to be hard to come back from. We have now a second generation, right? A baby comes up, we grow up, they grow up. We know how to use cell phones. We can't reproduce the cell phone. They don't even care what a cell phone is. Now they have a kid. By the third generation, man, we're growing crops. We don't care. We're not even worried about this stuff anymore. The whole reset starts, and then you got to come back up again. So you go down and then come back up. See,
rebuild.
This is the cycle that happens over and over again. And we've only been alive for this planet.
Or that wave is inverse. What you just said, in a sense, exactly. the going up is the growing the crops. The going down is the cell phone.
I like that, man. No, I like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's a certain level of peace and tranquility when simplicity.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
I like that.
And by the way, when you talk about rediscovering, when you talk about rediscovering, as if to say that the knowledge was there before, let's not forget the etymology of the word discover, right? To remove the cover. Discovering actually means unveiling something that was already there, but that was veiled. So the word that we use for discovery implies that the knowledge was there before and it was covered.
Yeah. Right. That's good. That's a good one. That's very true. That's very true. So it's really amazing, Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, Billy, thanks so much. You mentioned the book a couple times, but if there's anything you want to plug to people who might be discovering you here with us, just let us know.
Exactly. Well, we have Forbidden Knowledge TV. Here's my mug, Forbidden Knowledge TV. Okay, we're on Roku. I don't know how to get it set. We're in Roku, Amazon Fire TV. Google Play, iOS. Android, we're on everything, guys. And what's amazing is it's conscious TV. It's like a conscious Netflix. Over 1,000 shows of great conscious content. It's not just me, even though there's a lot of me on there, but there's hundreds of lecturers, workshops, classes, seminars, even documentaries. Documentaries that I've been in, documentaries that are done by other people, science documentaries, physics documentaries, esoteric wisdom documentaries, and even nature documentaries, leopards and lions and octopus and all this stuff, elephants. And we got a lot of great stuff on the network, and it's growing every single day. And it's a 3-day free trial. And every month I give away a brand new computer to one of the lucky subscribers. So if you're an active subscriber, I just randomly pull out a name, and if they're on the active list, they win a computer. In January, I'm going to give away a whole car, a brand new car in January. You have to be an active subscriber for 6 months or more, and that one person will randomly win a brand new car. And just a little while ago, I gave away a brand new, I don't know, I put it away probably, a brand new computer monitor, 21-inch flat screen monitor for a computer. So I just want to do these random giveaways for subscribers to give back something to them, so that word of mouth to me is better than advertising a lot of money on Google. I think I'd rather give it back to the people. The book is still a bestseller on Amazon, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson. It's been a bestseller now for 17 months straight in Ancient Civilizations on Amazon, doing phenomenal numbers. I think there's 500 positive 5-star reviews or something like that, or close to it on Amazon. That must resonate with a lot of people, because all those people who bought the book, I think 20,000 people have bought the book. A lot of them didn't even know who I was. They just, they liked the book. And I have my own social media platform now, Unite the 99, UNITE 99, which is a social media app. It's got the best, in my opinion, of Facebook and Instagram combined. And it allows people to go on there and post without suppression and without shadow banning. In other words, if I post something and then you post something after me, they're going to see mine first. If you post something before me, they're going to see yours first and mine's after. The way I think it should be, instead of all this crazy AI algorithm type thinking stuff.
We don't like that stuff.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you're posting, if you're trying to teach people how to make a bomb, that has to be deleted. But pretty much have a free reign to talk about topics and have educated conversation. You can't bully people. You can't tell people how to make a bomb. Other than that, you're not going to be suppressed on the network. And so it's just common sense stuff. People are in there posting great positive vibes and having a great time. There's nobody hopping in comment feeds and attacking anybody or treating anybody like an idiot. For whatever reason, so far, those people that have joined and it's free, have been just very positive, and it's doubling every week in size. So I think we're at 12,000 members on the app right now, and it's 5 stars on Android and 5 stars on Apple as well. So that's it, man.
Congrats, dude! Amazing.
Congrats.
So happy you're doing, like you said, you call it a duty, and we're very blessed to be in the presence of your duty. You know what I mean?
Hey,
everything that you're, it's amazing. So we really appreciate it. Man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me. We got to do this again, guys. This was a great conversation.
Yeah.
We got a part 2 for sure. We can definitely part 2 in there. Yeah,
let's do it.
Cool.
Thanks,
awesome.
Billy.
Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all.
Cool.
Get y'all later.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Take care, man. Bye.